morning. I am obviously not Pastor Steve Kelly or a bandwagon Bama fan, as most of the front line seems to be. But I'm Josh Kicker. I'm the general manager of the church. I have the honor and privilege to share with you today. And it's a pleasure to be with our online family, so many of you online. And Gigi, you were getting a lot of love online. I was watching the comments as you led worship so beautifully. How many love our Create team? Pastor Steve has the honor and privilege of speaking at Pastor Rick Godwin's 78th birthday celebration. He's celebrating his birthday this week, and he's out there ministering in San Antonio, Texas. And so it's an honor and privilege that we as a church have the opportunity to send our senior pastors. Hope everybody's all right back there. But as I mentioned, I'm Josh Kicker. I'm the general manager, and I also help oversee our online campus. And I think one time my son heard me say, we're going to welcome our OC fam. And he just laughed at me. He's like, oh, yeah, Dad, you're so relevant. Good job, OC fam. But see, I like to mess with my kids. I'm still working on that verse that says, don't exasperate your children. So I like to come downstairs and I like to say, guys, what would you do if you didn't have such a Gucci dad? Now, it doesn't mean I buy Gucci stuff or anything. For those that don't know, it just kind of means cool or whatever. It's normally met with this exasperated eye roll like, oh, Dad, you're so cringy. I'm like, what? Really? No, I'm Gucci, no cap. No cap. Now, those that don't know, cap and no cap means lie or no lie. And so I'm like, no, I'm Gucci. So I'll come downstairs in my work attire and I'm like, I look at him and I'm like, dude, respect the drip, Karen. Respect the drip. And they're like, oh, what are you talking about? You're so basic. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you wear the same jeans. Now, respect the drip, for those that don't know, deals with your outfit for the day, so to speak. He's like, you wear the same jeans over and over in the same blue shirt. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Of course, I'm in a blue shirt and jeans today on Super Bowl Sunday. And I'm like, no, man, this is okay. I got my Echoes on. These are padded for extra comfort, man, for the soles. Got to protect my bunions. I don't have bunions. But my kids think I'm delusional. They typically respond with, okay, boomer. And I'm like, dude, I'm not a boomer, like legitimately. He's like, the fact you're trying to explain it just exemplifies the fact that you're probably a boomer. But they think I'm delusional. And we have these delusional moments in our life. And to delude means to cause someone to believe something that's not true. And there's this great story in Isaiah chapter 44 where the prophet Isaiah and God's talking to the Israeli people and the Jewish people. And I'm going to throw some pronunciations out there on one word. Hopefully I get it right. Richard, I know you're watching. Give me a thumbs up emoji if I do get it right. If I don't, I blame Joe Riddle. But in Isaiah chapter 44, God speaking to his people says, but now listen, Jacob, my servant, Israel, whom I've chosen. Already, he's named them twice. He's kind of put the parallels of the different realities of the situations and circumstances that they walk through. And he's called them Jacob, which kind of means follower or on the heels of or supplanter. And then he calls them Israel, which wrestles with God or God's warriors. And so you see the dichotomy and the paradigm and spectrum of the nation he's dealing with and the seasons they walk through. But he goes on to say, my servant Israel, whom I've chosen. This is what the Lord says. He who made you, who formed you in the womb, and who will help you. Do not be afraid, Jacob, my servant, Jeshurun, whom I've chosen. Now that word, Jeshurun, he's only used it 3 other times in the entirety of the Bible outside of this passage. And to give context to this chapter, they were under Babylonian exile or Babylonian captivity at this time. It was one of the many diasporas of the Jewish people. Nebuchadnezzar had come in and ruined Jerusalem, taken siege first in 597 and I think then in 587 when he actually destroyed the city. And they were exiled from Jerusalem up until somewhere around 539 BC when a Persian king kind of let them come back into the city. But that word Jeshurun exemplifies both the love and the direction of God. It means upright one or called one. Now, the context of this whole chapter, he goes on to basically talk about how they've rebelled against God. And so, yet he still looks at them in the midst of their rebellion, in the midst of them walking away, and says, my upright one, the person I've chosen. And I thank God, no matter what the mess I've been in over my life, he pierces through that and still says, Josh, my upright one, my chosen one. He still looks through your mess and says, Austin, my upright one, my chosen one. The love and direction of God, paralleled in this chapter, is shown and exemplified that he doesn't leave you where you're at. Because he then goes on to talk about, I'm going to bless the nation of Israel. But then the next 20 verses or so, he talks about their idol worship. He talks about the things that they've replaced him with. And he says in verse 20, he feeds on ashes, a deluded heart misleads him. He cannot save himself or say, is not this thing in my right hand a lie? Is not this thing in my right hand a lie? They become so deluded, they can't recognize the things in front of them, and the things that they're holding on to are lies. I got a thumbs up from Richard, so I'm thinking I hit the pronunciation. What are you holding on to you that you can't recognize as a lie anymore? Because we become delusional when we're convinced that we're right at the expense of truth. And as we've alluded to in the course of this year, and as you see it in society today, truth has become sort of this relative standard. But John 17:17 says, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. Matthew 24:35 says, heaven and earth will pass away before your words pass away. Psalm 119:89 says, your word, O Lord, is forever settled in heaven. Psalm 19:9 says, the law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. And this delusion doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen to all of a sudden we wake up and we can't say this thing in my right hand is a lie. And that's why relationships matter and a community of faith matters, so that you have people that can say, hey man, you're missing the mark. You're kind of walking astray. You're kind of deviating from the things that God has put in your heart because maybe something wasn't perfect. And he's put things right in plain sight for us. But is the plain sight item a lie, or are you holding on to the truth? Last February, I was visiting my brother. There was an Uber driver. We were talking. They said, I just got out of the Air Force because, I just didn't like the structure and the rigidity. And I was like, in the Air Force? Really? Just kidding. I was in the Navy, so, we love our Air Force people. My cousin's a bomber pilot. He's the one that told me it was a country club life, not me. But he's like, I just didn't like the structure and the rigidity. I just need to find my truth. The truth is in plain sight. It's right in plain sight for us. And I want to live my life to reflect 1 Thessalonians 2:4 that says, we're not here to please men, but God who tests our heart. Or 1 Timothy 4:16 that says, watch your life and doctrine closely. Persevere in them. And when you do, you save both yourself and your hearers. But something happened about 12 months ago, and all of a sudden people's life and doctrine, they were like, they were left to examine it. And they realized maybe just Sunday attendance wasn't enough of a tick in the box to sustain a relationship with Jesus. Because once that was removed from their option, it's like, where'd they go? And we're left to examine questions. What was my faith really like? We're hit with this pandemic and this unrest. And we're left to question, is God really involved in it? Or has our faith become petty? Do we walk around and look like this guy with our faith? Not that would ever happen in a Wave Church auditorium. That you might think it's too cold. But do we walk around kind of looking like an old curmudgeon in our faith? Have we gotten petty with it? Has our heart become deluded? So I want to give you a couple things that help me and hopefully will help you avoid a deluded heart. Firstly, you got to focus on the right headlines. You got to focus on the right headlines. We are surrounded by negative headlines and negative news clips. So much so, I had to take the time to carefully pick some of these headlines so as to make sure I didn't get peppered on the online comments like, I can't believe you put that headline there. But we look and we're bombarded with negative headline and the loss of people, and you got to pour one out for Kobe. It was about a year ago. He's still way better than LeBron. That'll probably get some comments online. Well, Jordan is the GOAT. That's no question. But, or you see the pettiness of it. The top headline there is something like a Florida woman sues over a paternity test on a goat. You want some cheap entertainment? Don't do this now. Nobody ever checks their phone or internet and people online down at Seaboard. Don't check your phone now. But Google Florida man followed by your birthday. It's some cheap entertainment. I think my birthday is December 27th. I'm talking Google Florida man, December 27th. And I think like the top 3 headlines is man burns down house because vampires were attacking. Only in Florida. I know sometimes it felt like a zombie apocalypse last year. But really? Or man punches ATM because and broke it, gets arrested because it gave him too much cash. Only in Florida. Only the last one, man tries to pay for food with weed. I know you got the munchies, but you got to find a different avenue. We're not there yet. We're still trying to figure out Dogecoin and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. We're not paying with stuff for weed yet. But you've got to shift the focus to the right headlines and something a little more positive. And we should focus on the ones that reflect a positivity around us. Maybe there's things of reconciliation. Maybe there's things where teachers battling chemotherapy, teaching from the hospital room. Because when you shift your perspective to the right headlines, crisis can't delude your heart. A pandemic can't delude your heart. Winston Churchill said, when I look back on all these worries, I remember the story of the old man on his deathbed. Said he had a lot of trouble in his life, most of which never happened. What headlines are you writing in your life? What headlines are you creating? Are they centered around fear? Corrie ten Boom put it this way, said, worry is a cycle of inefficient thoughts whirling around the center of fear. And fear has tried to grip our hearts these last 12 months. And we're reversing the course. Why you've heard Pastor Stephen Sharon create the theme of don't lose your dance. Why you've heard us talk about restoring joy. Why you've heard us talking about the church bringing hope. And we're going to hear the vision next week of what Wave Church is going to do through the course of 2021, which is really what you're going to do. Because we can't do it without you. And just so you know, it's not like these people, Winston Churchill was in the middle of a world war when he said, most worries don't happen. Or Corrie ten Boom, who probably is credited with saving around 800 Jewish people during the Holocaust as she hid them in homes. It's not like she didn't have anything on the line to sit around or anything to fear when she said worry is a cycle of inefficient thoughts whirling around the center of fear. But they understood the principle of 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 18 that says, therefore we don't lose heart. Though outwardly we're wasting away, inwardly we're renewed day by day. For these light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we don't focus on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, what is unseen is eternal. Are the headlines you're writing shifting to an eternal perspective, or are they caught up in the distractions that make the thing in your right hand a lie that you can't even see? We have to be able to, but we get caught up with just trying to do so much. Trying to just convince ourselves we've got to do everything like we're some Waffle House short order cook. I love Waffle House, don't at me. If you don't know about their hash browns, you don't know living. But when they just get order after order peppered at them, and we think that's what life is like. But juggling's a circus stunt. We get caught up in multitasking. I'm pretty good at multitasking, but we get caught up with it. Here, I'll show you. Everybody at home as well, Seaboard, Greenville, go ahead and lift your foot. Not up high, don't lift your leg up in there. But just lift it. Start rotating it clockwise. If you don't know what clockwise is, I can't help you, Austin. Rotate it clockwise. Now trace with your finger a 6. What happened to your foot? Multitasking is a circus stunt. Juggling is a circus stunt. It's ironic that the same mind that convinces us, allows us to set the goals we know we need to do to achieve, doesn't allow us to do the thing we actually need to do to achieve it. But you've got to be able to shift and focus to the right headlines. Because when you can shift your perspective, secondly, what's left is right. And I think a lot of people during the last 12 months when the world slowed down, they thought maybe it's what's left isn't right. But God has deposited something in you. He still looks at you and says, yes, you're my upright one, my called one. But we get caught up in trying to live this perfect Christian life. Excellence is not perfection. Don't get it confused. Well, how do we measure our success in life? We're not on some performance-based Christianity where we have to tick all the right boxes. Growth for growth's sake is the ideology of the cancer cell.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't exist to grow. We exist to become a disciple of God.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, from that comes growth. But growth for growth's sake, everything's got to be perfect. And our life goes wrong and things happen and then you realize it's not perfect. That perfection is really an illusion. But this is kind of what social media does to us. You're hurting, broken on the inside, but I can put the mask on. I can look good in the mirror, but inside, I don't hear him calling me my upright anymore. I'm broken because I thought I had to live a perfect life. Michelangelo sculpted his famous statue, David, out of a piece of marble that was rejected by other sculptors because of imperfections. God's called you to be perfectly imperfect. To be perfectly imperfect. And we get caught up and we make vision this grandiose thing. And it's big. But we kind of mystify it and put it up there. You want a vision for your life? You do well to do Micah 6:8. And what does the Lord require of us? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. Humility keeps us secure in our dreams. I love this quote, and I know I've said it before, but Norman Cousins says, people are never more insecure when they become obsessed with their fears at the expense of their dreams. And 2021 needs to be a time when we begin to dream again. The wind might have been taken out of our sails a little bit. It may have been a great year for you. But either way, stay in a humble path, walking with our God, and you will see dreams birthed inside of you. You will see vision come alive inside of you. You will see hope restored to humanity. And the church can become a place of reconciliation, a place of hope, a place of healing. That's why James says in James 4:8, draw near to me and I'll draw near to you. And in verse 10 says, humble yourselves and I will lift you up. But we get caught in this perfection cycle, but perfection's not the issue. Faithfulness is. You guys come on up. Use my sons, because I'm gonna be within 6 feet of people. My teenage boys that love me. Was that too cringy for you this morning, guys? Was I all right? So we begin to understand and we treat our life. Go ahead this way. And we get caught up. Thanks for the prep work of unrolling us. We get caught up and we kind of hold on to our faith like this. And something happens where we're no longer perfect. A pandemic hits and we just drop it. We don't understand the simplicity of love and faithfulness. Proverbs 3:3-4 says, love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor with God and man. But perfection happens and we want to let go. I got offended, so I'm going to deconstruct my faith. I got hurt. I had something bad happen to me. But we lose the simplicity. But when we bind it around our neck, come on, wrap it around, bro. Let's go. Spin cycle, baby. When you wrap it around your neck and you bind it and you write it on the tablet of your heart, something comes, it's not as easy to let go. And I realize that I depend on other people. Martin Luther King put it this way: in a real sense, all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. And yet we sit and lose sight of the simplicity of love and faithfulness. But we realize maybe CGs matter because when I'm tied to somebody else, it's not as easy to just walk away and deconstruct. Sorry, buddy. Whew. That was a little tight. But it's not as easy because it's written on the tablet of our hearts. But we love Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight. And we walk around and think, oh, Jesus is going to make our path straight. It's just going to be simple and easy. And he's going to direct our paths. And stuff happens. And all of a sudden we realize, no, it wasn't perfect. But when you strip back and understand, he still looks at you and says, Yeshurun, my upright one. Then you can stay faithful. Thanks, fellas. Good luck getting out of that. Don't trip on the stairs. But you got to quiet the chatter and listen to the right song. My illustrious teenage sons and my 10-year-old walk around all day with their AirPods in their ears for the most part. And it takes us about 5 times of yelling their names. Hey, Ryan, Will. Right, well. And then it's like, hey, we need to get ready to go. Yeah, I know. Hey, can you take the trash out? Yeah, I know. You know, Jack. Squat. I don't know what word you were thinking of. But it's this infuriating answer that gets you out of sorts. I know. But how many times do we do that with God? Yeah. Hey, I need you to read my word. Huh? What? Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, I need you to get involved in a CG. Oh, yeah, I know. I need you to play a part in Legacy. Yeah, I know. But what songs are you listening to? Don't get caught up in the wrong music. We talked a lot about dance this last month. You better be listening to the right music. You better be listening to the right songs rather than getting lost in arguments. And social media has definitely become that space. One thing I've learned over the 21 years of marriage with my wife is that she doesn't care about winning arguments. And I play to win the game. On our 10th anniversary, we were in the islands with some friends on a kayak. And we turned it into a little bit of a race. Like, we're in some beautiful islands, should be taking in scenery. We turned it into a little bit of a race. I'm like, Lydia, we got to get in sync. I was in the back, she was in the front. Got to get in sync. And she's like, well, I can't see you. You have to get in sync. I was like, well, I physically can't paddle as slow as you are paddling right now. It was almost my last anniversary. But we get caught, lost in art. She was like the person on the couples retreat movie. Don't admit that you've seen it. But they'd rather swim in shark-infested waters than be in the kayak with you right now. Rather than taking in the beauty around us, rather than taking in the scenery, rather than taking in what God has in store for us, we'd rather get lost in arguments. just to win. And don't confuse a corporate relationship church with a personal relationship with Jesus. And in 2021, we've got to get to a place where Jesus is personal again. We have to make Jesus personal again. But when it becomes task, it loses depth and substance. And I heard this quote, and we think, it's just this checklist that God's going to punish us. And I heard somebody say, the fear of God is not that God will smite us, but that he'll lift his hand off of us. And while I understand in the New Testament he never leaves us nor forsakes us, so maybe there's some theological implications with that quote, I want to be like David that says, don't take your presence away from me. That can pray in Psalm 63, God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek your face. I have seen your power. I have seen you in the sanctuary, and I will be satisfied. How satisfied are you with God? He takes great pleasure in you. Are you taking pleasure in him? Are you listening to the right songs? Zephaniah 3:17 says, the Lord is with you. He's mighty to save. He takes great delight in you. He quiets you with his love. He rejoices over you with singing. When's the last time you heard God sing over you? Or is the chatter too much for what we do? Is the busyness too much for what we had? Because before 12 months ago, life was busy. Then life wasn't busy. And we walked around most of the last 12 months like this guy. Are you though? See, when we're busy, we don't have to examine the hard questions of, am I really happy? Because I'm just filling my life with things. So much so to the point where what's in my right hand becomes a lie and my heart's become deluded. And then finally, to avoid a deluded heart, you have to change what's in your right hand. You have to replace the lies the enemy has told you that you're not good enough. I'm not enough. That's true. That's a lie society has told us. I'm not enough. But with God, see, fear tries to make us think we can't cope. Faith brings strength at the right time. And so we have to change what's in our right hand because God has given us amazing things. And you may not think so for your life, but I promise you, if you look, you'll see. And you hold on to those things that are dear to you. Whether that's your family, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship with God or with friends. And you're walking along and he's given you and speaking to you, comforting you, directing your steps, because love and faithfulness is bound around you. But then something happens and you sort of just let go. And you pick up things. Maybe it's shame or baggage from your past that you just can't shake. And you fill your right hand with it. All the while, what really mattered is starting to grow a further distance away from you. Or maybe it's something more simple like, I spend too much time binge watching Bridgerton on Netflix. And you're like at episode 6, well, that escalated quickly. If you see, I know who watched it. But you look at it and you replace it. And then you get some bad news. And I just need a drink. It's been a tough week. I just need to take the edge off. And that's fine until it's replaced what's in your right hand. Until it's replaced and separated you from the things God gave you. And you keep walking and you keep filling and anesthetizing the pain with something else. You got bad news, a relationship, you lost your job. And you take something else to take the edge off the pain. Or you're trying to live a life chasing prosperity and you're just racking up debt. chasing that prosperity dream. God never called you to live with all these things in your right hand. Because all this while, what mattered kept walking, and you're further away because you filled it. Or you got marital challenges, relationship issues. And so you think, you know what? I'll just check out what's on the computer. And you fill it with a fantasy. You fill it with a lie. All the while, you're over here. You can't even recognize what's in your hand anymore as a lie because it has so consumed you, so taking you away from your relationship with God. And the things he gave you sit far back. But he says in Isaiah 41:13, for I'm the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. And the anthropomorphic attributes of God, the right hand represents this place of omnipotence, this place of power, this place of honor. And we've sat that down. We've sat his honor. We've sat his power. We've sat being in the right hand of God for a lie because our hearts have become deluded. Or he says in Isaiah 41:10, do not fear, I'm with you. Do not be dismayed, I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you and uphold you with my righteous hand. Like Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands. They're filled with lies. Because you let go of the hand that really mattered. And this is if you've never had a relationship with God, or even if you do, because we all go through stuff too, and we replace the things in our right hand. But we got to understand what Paul said in Ephesians 3:16 through 20. He says, I pray that out of his glorious riches that you may be strengthened in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And so that you, being rooted and established in love, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, then you'll find favor. So that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power with all of God's people, why a community of faith matters, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep the love of God is. And to know this love that surpasses knowledge, so that you may be filled to the measure of the fullness of God. You can't get to the fullness holding on to the wrong things in your right hand. You can't get to the measure that God has for you to understand how high, how wide, how long, how deep is the love of God. Because I promise you, when you change what's in your right hand, when you focus your headlines on the right things, focus on the right headlines, and you get to a place where what's left is right, and you listen to the right songs, he pierces back the veil and he looks at you and says, my upright one, my chosen one. No cap.